Our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's dive straight into the day's headlines. Bowing to pressure as the South Korean public demands action on Chinese nationals still entering the country, the government finally bars foreigners from China's coronavirus-hit Hubei Province. The ban starts Tuesday. The outbreak's economic impact. South Korean firms in China and those who receive supplies from that country are feeling the heat. Supply chains break down and factories either shut or continue with skeleton staff. Plus, South Korea's Navy helps a drifting Iranian boat in the Gulf of Oman. The Navy's Cheonghae Unit is in the region to help protect the vital crude oil supply routes. So we begin our continuing coverage of the coronavirus. The number of deaths leapt overnight as countries around the world, and especially China, are struggling to get a handle on the snowballing outbreak. According to the latest figures from Chinese health officials on Monday, the total number of deaths has reached 361 in China, and confirmed cases are now over 17,000, at least 350 deaths. And over 11,000 infections are in Hubei Province, where Wuhan, the city where the outbreak began, is located. In just a 24-hour period, there were more than 2,800 new confirmed cases and 57 deaths in China. Out of the new cases, more than 1,000 confirmed cases and 41 deaths were in Wuhan. Now, you might say better late than never, but South Korea has finally said it will not be allowing foreign nationals to enter the country if they've recently been to China's Hubei province, where the coronavirus first broke out. This is the first time South Korea's taken the step, but it joins many other countries and a growing list of countries at that to have done the same. Shin Se-min has this report.
In the rapidly evolving public health emergency, the South Korean government says any foreign national who's recently been to Wuhan, China, or the surrounding region will be banned from coming into South Korea starting Tuesday, the 4th.
South Korea will be restricting entry from critical regions in China, the epicenter of the spread of the novel coronavirus. Starting from midnight, February 4th, all foreign nationals who have visited China's Hubei province within the past 14 days will be banned from entering South Korea.
As for Korean nationals, the Prime Minister added that anyone with a similar travel history must impose a self-quarantine of 14 days. And the same goes for anyone who's in close or regular contact with those who've visited the Chinese province. Those who work in group facilities like postnatal care centers or nurseries and have traveled to the region will not be allowed to go to work for 2 weeks. The government will also be suspending its visa-free travel program for Jeju Island. South Korea, together with the Jeju provincial government, had implemented a visa-free system allowing almost all foreigners to stay on Korea's southernmost island of Jeju for up to 30 days without a visa. South Korea, with the new entry ban, joins a growing list of nations like the U.S. and Japan that have imposed travel restrictions because of the coronavirus outbreak.
We must block transmission routes in local communities even more tightly. The government will preemptively prepare for mid to long-term responses to ready itself for possible worst-case scenarios.
As for the shortage of hygiene products like face masks and hand sanitizer, leading to unprecedented price hikes, the PM ordered the Food and Drug Safety Ministry and the related authorities to reassure the public that supplies are on their way. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has recognized the possibility of the asymptomatic transmission from the novel coronavirus. This comes as local health authorities had denied such a possibility, but they've really changed their tune as suspected cases of these kinds of transmissions are popping up now all around the world. Jaein with the details.
Health authorities in South Korea have acknowledged for the first time the possibility of the novel coronavirus spreading via travelers who are asymptomatic or mildly ill and have decided to tighten their focus as a result. According to the Minister of Health and Welfare, the new coronavirus has a different type of transmission method to other existing infectious diseases.
When you look at the characteristics, the symptoms are not very seen, but you can see the virus. We are seeing a lot of cases in people.
According to the minister, it's not a matter of the virus being dormant or having no symptoms when tested, but the fact that the virus can actually be detected even without any symptoms or very mild symptoms. This comes as health authorities previously indicated that asymptomatic infections are absent in the novel coronavirus, and the virus cannot be transmitted to others when it's asymptomatic. However, reports of asymptomatic transmissions have since occurred in China and Germany. While there has not been a case in South Korea yet, health authorities say they will actively respond to concerns. The World Health Organization has also acknowledged the coronavirus can be spread without the patient showing any symptoms. According to them, while the main source of infection is via patients who show symptoms, it's still important to wear a face mask and wash your hands regularly. Health authorities say the virus can also be transmitted via fecal matter, making it all the more important to thoroughly wash your hands after using the bathroom. 이승재, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in is calling on his administration to use all possible means to counter the spread of the coronavirus. During a meeting with outside experts on infectious diseases on Sunday, the president called to upgrade cooperation between the central and local governments by including local authorities at the weekly cabinet meeting. The presidential office said in a readout that the meeting also included discussions on long-term measures of developing treatment or vaccines. And this all came as South Korea confirmed 3 new cases of the coronavirus on Sunday. This brings the total of number of confirmed cases in the country to 15. Kang Hyung-woo reports.
South Korea has reported 3 new confirmed cases of the coronavirus on Sunday. That means the country now has 15 patients in total. According to the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the 13th case is a 28-year-old man who was one of the hundreds of people flown back Friday from the Chinese city of Wuhan. The 14th case is a 40-year-old Chinese woman. She's related to a 49-year-old Chinese man diagnosed with the coronavirus on Saturday. The 15th case is a 43-year-old Korean man who came back from Wuhan on January 20th. The first 12 confirmed patients have been quarantined and are getting treatment at state-designated hospitals. Most of them are in a stable condition. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is analyzing the movements of the 3 new patients to determine where they have been and with whom they've come into contact. Meanwhile, Korea's Silla duty-free chain and movie theater chain CGV have each decided to temporarily close one of their locations, a duty-free store at the Hotel Silla in central Seoul and the CGV at Bucheon Station. That's because the nation's 12th coronavirus case, a 49-year-old Chinese man, visited both places twice in January. As a tour guide, he came into contact with a Japanese person infected with the virus in Japan. In another development, South Korea has put close to 700 of its nationals in temporary isolation after they were brought back from Wuhan. They are being housed in facilities in the cities of Asan and Jincheon, where they will stay for at least 14 days without having visitors or leaving the place. During the time, medical staff are closely monitoring them and doing checkups twice a day. The Korean government is working to figure out how it's going to track their movements after they're released. Kang Hyung-woo, Arirang News.
The South Korean military and US troops stationed here on the Korean Peninsula are also taking more precautionary measures against the coronavirus. Seoul's defense ministry said Sunday it has delayed a series of reserve forces training initially planned on March 2nd and after for about a month and a half. Meanwhile, US Forces Korea has also instituted a 14-day self-quarantine measure for US service members returning from mainland China to South Korea on or after January 19th. Seoul's defense ministry has also implemented quarantine measures to include military personnel that have been in contact with family members that have just visited China. Now, the spread of the new coronavirus is also affecting South Korean corporations as the global supply chain is expected to face continued disruptions, with China extending their Lunar New Year holiday for yet another week. Major South Korean car manufacturers have already been affected amid difficulties securing automobile parts. Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
South Korean manufacturers are beginning to feel the pinch of the rapidly spreading new coronavirus. Many of their Chinese factories are still shut down following the Chinese government's decision to extend the Lunar New Year holiday not only in cities near Wuhan, the epicenter of the new virus, but also in other regions. 16 cities and provinces, including Shanghai and the country's southern province of Guangdong, have extended the holiday until February 9th. The move could disturb the normal operation of many South Korean firms, including Samsung Electronics, LG Electronics, and SK Innovation, that have manufacturing bases in China.
Some of our production facilities will be shut down until February 9th, in line with the guidelines put forth by Chinese provincial governments.
South Korean chip makers, however, have been maintaining their routine operation over the holiday season, as shutting down their production facilities leads to greater damages to these firms. LG Display, SK Hynix, and Samsung Display are currently operating with minimal personnel. But they say they will inevitably face difficulties if the situation is drawn out over a long period.
We plan to provide multifaceted response measures to minimize damages amid concerns there could be greater damages if the situation worsens.
Industry watchers say the rapid spread of the new coronavirus have already led South Korean car manufacturers to scale down their production as supply lines have been disrupted. Sangyong Motor says it will suspend production at its plant in South Korea until next week, following a delay in the supply of wire harnesses. Many South Korean companies have formed task force teams to deal with the issue, but many are likely to face uncertainties going forward. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, in the rest of the day's news, the South Korean Navy has rescued an Iranian vessel near the Gulf of Oman. The Defense Ministry said on Sunday that its Cheonghae Unit helped the Iranian boat named Also Hail on Saturday at around 5 p.m. Korea time near Oman's Muscat port. The small vessel had been drifting there for a week due to a fuel shortage after departing from Iran 2 weeks earlier. The troops provided the 10 Iranian crew members with additional fuel and food for a safe return to Iran. This comes after the South Korean government decided last month to expand the naval unit's operating areas to the Strait of Hormuz. The unit will be operating in the region independently as part of its efforts to protect South Korean nationals and vessels in the region. In economic news, South Korea's household debt to GDP ratio is growing at the second fastest pace in the entire world. According to the Institute of International Finance on Monday, household debt was around 95% of South Korea's GDP as of the third quarter of last year. That's an increase of almost 4% from the year before. Apart from China, South Korea's increase was the fastest out of 33 countries and the Eurozone. South Korea also ranked second in the world in terms of non-financial business debt to GDP ratio growth after Brazil during the same period. It's been over half a year now since Japan imposed unprecedented export controls on South Korea. This happened last July. For the last several months, Seoul has really strived to localize and diversify routes for key parts and materials. In the first installment of our special three-part series, our Kim Da-mi explains how the South Korean government has been surprisingly successful in its efforts so far.
Turning a challenge into an opportunity, South Korea has been quick and resourceful than ever to stand on its own. It's allocated over $860 million a year to localize 20 key tech parts and materials within a year and 80 more within 5 years. This has already enabled the country to stabilize supplies of the three key materials restricted by Japan. Local production of fluorinated polyamide has doubled thanks to newly built and expanded factories in the country. And in fact, a local supply of etching gas, another material critical to making semiconductors, has been secured since the end of last year. And this localization couldn't have happened at a better time.
Government, corporates, and people began to realize that we can't wait any longer, and also we can't rely too much upon Japanese imports for those critical items. And I think it was a good awakening or wake-up call for Korean people.
In addition, Seoul has successfully found ways to diversify its suppliers worldwide. US-based chemical company DuPont will invest $28 million in South Korea to develop and produce advanced photoresists. Japan produces around 90% of the world's photoresists, which are used to make semiconductors. South Korea's efforts have been recognized by the rest of the world too, including Japan. Japan's Asahi Shimbun has said that Japan failed to let sleeping dogs lie and that Seoul was able to localize materials much more quickly by concentrating its efforts in the private sector. The newspaper noted that Samsung Electronics has chosen suppliers outside of Japan to produce around 220 key parts and materials that it had mainly sourced from Japanese companies. In the long run, the Korean government will accelerate the regulatory reforms requested by businesses to further enhance their competitiveness. These include shortening the licensing period for chemicals from over 2 months to just 1 month. The South Korean government has pledged to continue to push for a stable supply for key parts and materials, regardless of external conditions. But most importantly, it says that trade talks with Japan must go on so they can return to the previous trading relationship. 김다미, Arirang News.
More Turkish military forces have crossed the Syrian border amid ongoing conflict there between Syrian government forces and rebels. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Yoon Jung-min. Jung-min, more instability in Syria.
That's right, Mark. Sources say Turkey has deployed more armed vehicles and soldiers to its border with Syria. Saudi Arabia's state-run media Al Arabiya reported Sunday that at least 200 armed vehicles crossed the Syrian border in northwest. The vehicles were reportedly heading towards Aleppo and Idlib. Idlib is the province where Syrian troops backed by Russia have recently made large advances. The escalation follows amid years-long clashes between Syrian government forces backed by Russia and rebel forces backed by Turkey. Tensions have been rising after a ceasefire brokered by Turkey and Russia broke down. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been threatening that Turkey will not hesitate to use military forces for stability in Syria. Now it's adding more concerns to hundreds of thousands of refugees in Syria. Idlib is home to some 3 million people, and many of them were transferred there from other parts of Syria, which were taken by government forces. The United Nations says some 390,000 people had fled northwestern Syria since December. A stabbing attack happened in Streatham, South London on Sunday, an incident that police are calling a terrorism-related incident. Police said they shot dead a man after 2 people were stabbed and wounded. Some witnesses said the man had been armed with a machete and was wearing silver canisters on his chest. A Western security source said the incident was related to Islamist militancy. Last November, a similar incident happened in London when a radical Islamist stabbed 2 people to death on London Bridge. Novak Djokovic reclaimed the world #1 ranking after beating Dominic Thiem at the Australian Open final. On Sunday, the 32-year-old won 3 sets to 2 over Thiem in the final and secured the men's singles title for the 8th time at Melbourne Park. Now he holds 17 Grand Slam single titles, narrowing a gap with his rivals Roger Federer with 20 and Rafael Nadal with 19. During the match, Djokovic shared sorrow for the recent death of basketball legend Kobe Bryant, who had been his close friend and occasional mentor.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus once a week on information useful for your everyday life. Now, South Korea's information service for foreigners is offering 24-hour services amid rising concerns over the coronavirus here. According to the Ministry of Justice, foreign nationals in the country can dial 1345 at any time of the day or night for general inquiries regarding the virus. The 24-hour service is available in Korean, English and Chinese, with services in 20 other languages also available from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. The ministry is advising foreigners with suspected symptoms like fever and other things to call 1339, different number for that. Translation services will be provided. Now, the cold, dry winter weather is harsh on our skin and causes problems like dryness and itchiness. Experts say that during the winter, people should moisturize more and take short, warm showers whenever possible. Park Se-young with more.
For people with atopic dermatitis, winter can be tough on their skin. The weather dries out the skin and makes it itchy, causing cracked and chapped skin. In the cold, dry winter months, it's important for even those without skin conditions to stay moisturized. Showers should be kept short without exfoliation, and it's best to refrain from going to saunas and steam rooms.
Take a light 5-minute shower at a temperature of 34 degrees Celsius using a body wash containing moisturizers. After dabbing yourself dry with a towel, rub moisturizing lotion all over your body.
The room temperature should be kept cool at 20 to 22 degrees Celsius with a humidity of around 50%. Atopic dermatitis patients should refrain from using electric blankets, hot water heating pads, and stone beds if possible. Eating foods rich in antioxidants like vegetables and lean meat and avoiding instant food can help. Experts also highlight the importance of avoiding stress. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Good morning. We hope you are well bundled up. It's actually going to feel sub-freezing all day today. And extreme cold weather is ahead with a big drop in temperatures expected by Wednesday morning, with lows dropping to -11 degrees Celsius here in the capital. So dress extra warmly on your way out today. The winter chill is back. And daily highs will be 2 to 3 degrees lower than yesterday. Seoul getting up to 2 degrees, Daejeon at 5 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, many western regions will see snow flurries through this morning. It's going to be less than 1 centimeter, but drive with extra caution. In fact, snow will spread to more regions tomorrow, which is Ipchun, the beginning of spring, according to traditional calendar. Also, we'll need to stay well bundled up throughout the week. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.